You are rude. Leave my restaurant.
I will see you.
Ava Brooks had just said sorry when Kang Ji-hoon threw a glass of ice water in her face. The food had only been a few minutes late, that was all. Ava froze where she stood. The cold water ran down her forehead, slipped into her eyes and soaked the collar of her black uniform. A small piece of ice slid from her cheek, dropped onto the floor and broke in half near her shoes. For a few seconds the entire restaurant went silent. Every table turned toward her. Every guest looked. No one spoke, no one stood up, no one told Kang Ji-hoon to stop. Ava lowered her eyes. Her heart cracked in a place she could not show. She wanted to say it was not her fault. She wanted to tell him the food being late did not give him the right to treat her like trash. She wanted to ask him if he had a daughter, a sister, a mother, anyone he loved, and whether he would be able to sit quietly if someone threw water in their face like that. But she said nothing. She needed this job, so she stood there with her face wet, her hands trembling, and her pride breaking quietly in front of strangers. "I'm sorry, sir," she whispered again. Kang Ji-hoon leaned back in his chair and looked at her with cold, empty eyes. "Sorry," he said. "Is that all you people know how to say?" Ava's lips trembled. She kept her head down. She was trying not to cry, but her eyes were already burning. She blinked fast, hoping the tears would mix with the water so no one could tell the difference. Kang Ji-hoon's voice stayed calm, and that made it even crueler. "If a simple order cannot arrive on time, then maybe you should not be working in a restaurant like this." Ava swallowed hard. "I'm really sorry, sir." Her voice broke on the last word. The guests watched in uncomfortable silence. Some looked away, pretending to adjust their napkins or check their phones. Others stared because people often stared when someone else was being humiliated, as if shame was a performance they had paid to see. Kang Ji-hoon was not finished. "Look at yourself," he said, standing there shaking, repeating sorry like it changes anything. "You wasted my time." Ava's shoulders folded inward. She looked smaller than she had a minute ago. She looked like someone trying to disappear while everyone in the room made it impossible. Behind the service counter, Chef Nia Carter had seen everything. She had been standing still for several seconds, her eyes fixed on Ava. Nia did not need anyone to explain what had happened. She had seen enough. She saw the water on Ava's face. She saw the way Ava kept apologizing. She saw the way the room stayed quiet. And she saw Kang Ji-hoon sitting there as if humiliating a young waitress was nothing more than part of his lunch. Nia stepped out from behind the counter. She did not rush. She did not shout. She walked slowly with the kind of calm that made people move their eyes before they moved their bodies. Ava saw her coming and quickly shook her head. "Chef, please," Ava said softly. "I'm okay." Nia stopped beside her. She looked into Ava's wet, frightened eyes. "No," Nia said. "You're not." Ava tried to hold herself together, but those 3 words broke something open. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and this time she could not hide them. Nia took a clean napkin from the nearest table and placed it gently in Ava's hand. "Go stand behind me," Nia said quietly. Ava hesitated. "Nia, please, I don't want you to get in trouble because of me." Nia's expression softened for 1 second. "Sweetheart, you are not the trouble." Then she turned toward Kang Ji-hoon. The restaurant went even quieter. Kang Ji-hoon slowly lifted his eyes to her. He was handsome in a dangerous, polished way. His black suit looked expensive enough to pay someone's rent for 6 months. His dark hair was perfectly styled. His face was sharp, controlled, and cold. A black tattoo rose from beneath his collar and touched the side of his neck like a warning he chose not to hide. But Nia did not look at the suit. She did not look at the watch. She did not look at the tattoo for more than a second. She looked straight into his eyes. "You owe her an apology," Nia said. Kang Ji-hoon stared at her as if he had not heard correctly, then a slow, cold smile touched his mouth. "And who are you?" "Nia Carter," she said. "The chef." His eyes moved over her white chef coat, then back to her face. "Good," he said. "Then perhaps you can explain why my food was late." Nia's voice stayed low. "The food being late does not give you the right to throw water in my employee's face." She failed to do her job. She apologized. "She wasted my time." "She is a person," Nia said. "Not a thing you get to punish because you are angry." A few guests shifted in their seats. Kang Ji-hoon's smile disappeared. He stood up. The air in the room changed. He was tall, broader than he looked while seated. The sunlight coming through the windows hit the side of his face, but it did nothing to soften him. His presence filled the space between the tables. It made the restaurant feel smaller. Ava took a small step back. Nia did not. Kang Ji-hoon adjusted the cuff of his suit jacket. "You speak boldly for someone who serves people for a living." Nia's jaw tightened, but her voice did not rise. "And you speak cruelly for someone who thinks money makes him important." A quiet gasp came from one of the tables. Kang Ji-hoon leaned slightly forward. "You should be careful." I am being careful, Nia said. I am carefully choosing not to let you abuse my staff. Ava looked at Nia with tears still caught in her lashes. No one had ever stood in front of her like that before. Not at work, not in public. Not when the person hurting her looked powerful enough to ruin everyone in the room. Kang Ji-hoon's eyes narrowed. You do not know who you are speaking to. No, Nia said. I know exactly what I saw. His face went still. Nia pointed toward Ava without looking away from him. I saw a young waitress apologize for something small. I saw you throw water in her face. I saw her lower her head while everyone watched. And I saw you keep going even after you knew she was already ashamed. Ava closed her eyes. The truth hurt. But hearing Nia say it out loud also made her feel less alone. Nia took one step closer. My employees are not here for you to break. Kang Ji-hoon's stare hardened. Your employee made a mistake. And you made a choice, Nia said. There is a difference. The room held its breath. Kang Ji-hoon looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, Do you speak to all guests this way? No, Nia replied. Only the rude ones. Ava's hand flew to her mouth. Someone at the back of the restaurant whispered, Oh my God. Kang Ji-hoon's eyes flashed for the first time. Anger showed clearly on his face. Nia did not move. She knew men like him. Men who expected every room to bend around them. Men who mistook silence for respect. Men who thought a woman's fear was proof of their power. She had spent her whole life watching women swallow pain to keep jobs, keep peace, keep homes, keep food on the table. She had done it herself more times than she wanted to remember. But today, watching Ava stand soaked and trembling in the middle of the dining room, something inside Nia refused to stay quiet. She looked at Kang Ji-hoon and spoke clearly. You're rude. Leave my restaurant. The words fell into the room like a plate shattering. No one breathed. Kang Ji-hoon stared at her. Ava stared at her. The guests stared at her. For one long second, it seemed as if even the sunlight had stopped moving through the windows. Kang Ji-hoon's expression did not change at first. Then something small passed through his eyes. Shock. He had not expected it. That alone told Nia everything. He was used to fear. He was used to people lowering their voices. He was used to managers apologizing before he finished being cruel. He was not used to a black woman in a chef coat standing in front of a room full of people and telling him to leave. Kang Ji-hoon slowly reached for his coat. Ava's breath caught. Nia stayed where she was. He picked up the coat from the back of his chair and folded it over one arm. His movements were controlled, almost too controlled, like his anger had been locked behind a door. He took a step away from the table. Then he stopped beside Nia. He turned his head just enough to look at her. You will remember this, he said softly. Nia met his eyes. So will Ava. For the first time, Kang Ji-hoon looked past Nia at the young waitress behind her. Ava immediately lowered her gaze. His face tightened. It was quick, almost invisible, but Nia saw it. A flicker. Not regret. Not enough for that. But something had touched him. Something he did not want to feel. Then it was gone. Kang Ji-hoon walked toward the door. Every eye followed him. His shoes made no sound on the polished floor. He did not look rushed. He did not look embarrassed. He moved like someone leaving by choice, not because he had been told to go, but everyone in that room knew the truth. Chef Nia Carter had thrown him out. At the front door, Kang Ji-hoon paused. He looked back once. His gaze found Nia across the restaurant. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. But the warning in his eyes was clear enough to chill the room. Then he opened the door and stepped outside into the bright afternoon. The door closed behind him. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then the whispers began. Ava stood behind Nia, still holding the napkin against her face. Her hands were shaking harder now, as if her body had waited until the danger was gone to let her feel it. Nia turned to her. Go wash your face, she said gently. Take your time. Ava shook her head, tears gathering again. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean for this to happen. Nia's face softened. Ava, listen to me. You do not apologize for someone else's cruelty. Ava stared at her. The words seemed to land somewhere deep. Nia reached out and squeezed her shoulder. You did nothing wrong. Ava covered her mouth as a sob escaped. Nia pulled her into a brief hug, just long enough to let the girl know she was not alone, then released her. The restaurant remained quiet around them. Then, from a corner table near the window, an older customer slowly stood up. His face had gone pale. Chef, he said. Nia looked over. The older customer's voice trembled as he glanced toward the door Kang Ji-hoon had just walked through. Do you know who you just sent out of this restaurant? Nia did not answer. Ava wiped her cheeks and looked at him too. The older customer swallowed. That was not just some rich customer, he said. That was Kang Ji-hoon. Nia stayed silent. The customer lowered his voice, but everyone still heard him. People in this city do not say his name carelessly. He is the most feared Korean don in Chicago. A cold silence spread through the room. Ava's face went white. Someone near the bar whispered, the Han Syndicate. The older customer nodded once. Slowly, yes, he said. That Kang Ji-hoon. Nia looked toward the front door. Outside, the day was bright. Cars passed. People walked along the sidewalk. Everything looked normal, but suddenly the sunlight felt thin. Ava stepped closer to Nia. "Chef," she whispered, "what did we just do?" Nia did not answer right away. She kept looking at the door. Kang Ji-hoon had left the restaurant, but somehow she knew the moment was not over. It had only begun. By the time the last lunch guest left the restaurant, the silence inside Marlowe felt heavier than the noise had been. Ava Brooks had changed into a dry uniform, but her eyes were still red. She moved quietly between the tables, collecting empty glasses and folded napkins with the careful movements of someone trying not to be noticed. Every time the front door opened, her shoulders tightened. Nia Carter saw it. She saw the way Ava kept looking toward the entrance. She saw the way the girl's hands paused whenever someone spoke too loudly. She saw the shame still sitting on her face, even after the water had dried. That hurt Nia more than the fear in the room, because Ava had done nothing wrong. But humiliation had a way of sticking to innocent people longer than it stuck to the cruel ones who caused it. The manager, Richard, had not spoken to Nia since Kang Ji-hoon walked out. He had spent nearly an hour in his office with the door closed, taking one phone call after another. Through the glass wall, Nia could see him pacing, running a hand through his thinning hair, looking more terrified with every call. The kitchen staff whispered around her. No one said Kang Ji-hoon's name loudly. Not anymore. They had all heard what the old customer said. He was not just a rich man, he was not just a rude customer. He was Kang Ji-hoon, the feared Korean Don of Chicago, a man whose name made suppliers change routes, investors lower their voices, and business owners pretend they had never seen anything. And Nia Carter had thrown him out of her restaurant in front of a room full of people. She stood in the kitchen, washing her hands even though they were already clean. Smatio, her sous chef, came up beside her. "Chef," he said softly. "You okay?" Nia turned off the water. "I'm fine." Mateo did not believe her. He had worked with her long enough to know the difference between calm and fine. Calm was how Nia moved during a rush. Fine was what she said when something was burning inside her and she refused to give it air. "You did the right thing," he said. Nia dried her hands slowly. "I know, but knowing did not make the restaurant safe. Knowing did not pay employees. Knowing did not stop a man like Kang Ji-hoon from deciding that one woman's dignity was an insult that needed punishment." Before Mateo could say anything else, Richard's office door opened. "Nia," he called. His voice was tight. Everyone in the kitchen went still. Nia looked over. Richard stood in the doorway, pale and sweating. "My office." Now, Ava, who had just entered from the dining room with a tray, stopped. Her eyes went straight to Nia. Nia gave her a small nod, a silent promise that she was not afraid. Then she walked into Richard's office. The moment the door closed, Richard turned on her. "What were you thinking?" Nia did not sit. "I was thinking one of our waitresses had water thrown in her face." Richard laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "Do you understand what you have done?" "Yes." "No, you don't." He grabbed a stack of papers from his desk and threw them down. "Our meat supplier just called. They can't deliver tomorrow." Nia frowned. "What?" "Our seafood supplier cancelled the weekend order. The produce company said their trucks are suddenly unavailable. The wine distributor said our account is under review." "Under review, Nia. We have never missed a payment." Nia felt the first cold touch of fear move through her stomach. Richard leaned closer across the desk. "This is him." Nia said nothing. Richard lowered his voice. "This is what he does. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to break windows. He makes one call, and the room around you starts disappearing." Nia looked through the glass wall toward the dining room. Ava was standing near the bar, pretending not to watch the office. Nia looked back at Richard. "So what do you want me to do?" Richard stared at her as if she had asked the easiest question in the world. "You apologize." He blinked. "Nia, no, you haven't even heard me." "I heard enough." Richard pressed both hands on the desk. "You will call Kang Ji-hoon. You will tell him you lost your temper. You will tell him you were wrong to embarrass him. You will ask him to let this go." Nia's jaw tightened, and Ava Richard hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Nia's eyes hardened. "You want me to apologize to him, but you don't care if he apologizes to her." Richard looked away. "We are trying to save the restaurant." "We?" Nia asked quietly. "Where was we when he threw water in her face?" Richard's face flushed. "Don't turn this into a speech. It isn't a speech. It's a question." He pointed at her. "You think you are the only person here with principles? You think I liked what happened? I didn't. But I also know the world is not fair, and sometimes you have to swallow your pride to survive." Nia's voice dropped. That wasn't pride standing in front of Ava. That was basic human decency. Richard rubbed his forehead like she was giving him a headache. "Decency doesn't keep the lights on." "No," Nia said. "But fear doesn't make a restaurant worth saving." Richard stared at her for a long moment, then his phone buzzed on the desk. He looked down, the color drained from his face. Nia watched him read the message twice. "What is it?" she asked. Richard did not answer immediately. Then he turned the phone toward her. The message was short. Chef Carter apologizes in person by 6 tonight. Or Marlowe closes by the weekend. No signature, no name. It did not need one. Nia read the message, then looked at Richard. He looked almost desperate now. This is not about you anymore, he said. This is about everyone. The cooks, the servers, the dishwashers, Ava. If this place goes down, they all lose their jobs. The words hit the exact place he meant them to hit. Nia thought of Mateo's 2 children, Rosa's rent, Ava's school bills, the prep cook who sent half his paycheck to his mother, the people who came in before sunrise and left after midnight because restaurants were cruel machines and workers kept them alive with tired hands. Richard saw her face change and pushed harder. You care about them, he said. Then fix it. Nia looked through the glass again. Ava was no longer watching. She was wiping a table slowly, her head lowered. Nia remembered the water on her face, the apology in her broken voice, the way no one had moved. Her decision did not become easier. It became clearer. I will not apologize for protecting her, Nia said. Richard slammed his hand on the desk. Then you will destroy us. Before Nia could answer, a knock came at the office door. Richard turned sharply. What? The hostess stood outside, frightened. Mr. Kang is here. The office went silent. Richard's mouth opened, then closed. Nia slowly turned toward the glass wall. Kang Ji-hoon stood in the dining room. He had returned without noise, without hurry, without the dramatic entrance a lesser man might have needed. He wore a black suit again, perfect and sharp. 2 men stood near the entrance behind him, but Kang himself looked almost relaxed. That made him more dangerous. Ava saw him and froze. Nia moved before she thought. She opened the office door and stepped into the dining room. Kang's eyes found her immediately. The restaurant staff stood still around them like people trapped in a painting. Richard rushed out behind Nia, trying to fix his face into a smile. Mr. Kang, he said quickly, thank you for coming. Please come into my office. We can discuss this privately. Kang did not look at him. His gaze stayed on Nia Chef Carter. His voice was calm. Nia hated that calm. Kang Ji-hoon, she said. Richard's eyes widened at her tone. Kang looked almost amused. Still brave. Still not sorry. Something shifted in his expression. Richard quickly stepped between them. Please, office. We'll talk like professionals. Kang finally looked at him. Richard immediately lowered his eyes. That small motion made Nia's stomach turn. This was what Kang Ji-hoon did to people. He did not need chains. He made fear do the work. They entered the office. Richard closed the door, but the glass walls meant half the staff could still see them. Nia stayed standing. Kang sat in the chair across from Richard's desk like he owned the building. Maybe by morning he could. Richard sat behind the desk, hands folded too tightly. Mr. Kang, he said, what happened earlier was unfortunate. Chef Carter is very passionate about her staff. She reacted emotionally. Nia looked at Richard. Don't speak for me. Richard's lips tightened. Nia. Kang raised one hand slightly. Richard went silent. Kang leaned back and studied her. You cost me face today, he said. Nia frowned. You poured water on a waitress in public. You cost yourself face. Kang's eyes sharpened. Richard whispered, please. Kang ignored him. You think this is about the girl? Her name is Ava. For the first time, Kang blinked slowly. Nia continued, and yes, it is about her. It's about every person who has to smile while someone powerful treats them like they don't matter. Kang looked toward the dining room where Ava stood near the far side of the room. She looked away the moment his eyes touched her. His jaw moved once. Then his attention returned to Nia. I do not care for public embarrassment, he said. Neither did she. The office became very still. Richard looked like he might be sick. Kang's fingers rested on the arm of the chair. His face showed nothing, but there was a pressure in the room now, something tightening by the second. Finally, he said, one apology. No. Richard closed his eyes. Kang smiled faintly. You do not even ask what it buys you. I know what it costs. What? My self-respect. Kang's smile disappeared. Nia stood straighter. If I apologize to you for defending Ava, every woman in that room learns the same ugly lesson they have been taught their whole lives, that a powerful man can humiliate you. And if you fight back, you are the problem. Kang's face remained cold, but his eyes did not move from hers. Richard stood up suddenly. Enough, he snapped. Nia, enough. I am your manager, and I am telling you this is your only option. If you want your job, you will apologize. Nia turned to him. The room seemed to narrow. Richard's voice softened, but only because fear had made him cruel in a quieter way. You walk out of here without fixing this, and there may not be a job to return to. Not for you. Not for anyone. Nia felt that one. She could fight for herself easily. Fighting when everyone else might pay the price was harder. She looked through the glass wall again. Her team stood outside. Mateo, Ava, Rosa, the servers, the cooks, people she loved, people who trusted her, people who needed their paychecks. For one painful second, doubt entered her chest. Maybe Richard was right. Maybe the world was too ugly for dignity to win every time. Maybe the staff would not thank her when they could not pay rent. Maybe Ava herself would suffer more because Nia had refused to bend. Then Ava lifted her head. Their eyes met through the glass. Ava was crying again, but she shook her head just once. No. That tiny movement broke Nia's doubt. Ava did not want Nia to bow for her. Nia turned back to Kang. My answer is no. Richard whispered, God help us. Kang stood slowly. The room felt colder with him on his feet. You are stubborn, he said. Nia took off her chef coat. Richard stared at her. What are you doing? Nia folded the coat carefully and placed it on his desk. I'm resigning. Richard's face went blank. Outside the office, Ava covered her mouth. Nia's voice did not shake. If the price of keeping this job is apologizing to the man who humiliated my employee, then I don't want the job. Richard looked at the coat like it was a body on his desk. Nia, don't be stupid. She looked at him. Stupid was thinking this place stood for something. Kang watched her in silence. Nia turned to him. You wanted an apology. You won't get it from me. Kang stepped closer. Richard stiffened, but Nia did not move. Kang stopped a few feet away from her. People who refused me usually lose more than a job. Nia's heart beat hard, but her voice stayed steady. Then take what you came to take. For the first time, Kang looked almost angry. Not because she had insulted him, because she had not given him fear. Nia walked past him and opened the office door. The kitchen staff stood in stunned silence. Ava rushed toward her. Chef, no, she whispered. Please, this is my fault. Nia immediately turned to her. No, Ava, but if I had just stayed quiet. You did stay quiet, Nia said, her voice breaking for the first time. That was the problem, not yours, theirs. Ava cried harder. Nia pulled her into her arms. The whole restaurant watched. This time, no one looked away. Nia held Ava tightly, then stepped back and wiped a tear from the girl's cheek with her thumb. Don't let anyone convince you that being mistreated is the cost of having a job. Ava nodded, but she could barely breathe through her tears. Matteo came forward. Chef, he said, voice rough, we'll walk with you. Nia shook her head. No, you all stay. You need your jobs. Rosa, standing near the kitchen door, said, we need you too. Nia's eyes filled, but she forced a small smile. You have each other. Richard appeared in the office doorway, pale and furious. Nia, if you walk out now, don't expect references. Don't expect help. Don't expect this industry to open doors for you after you embarrass the wrong man. Nia looked at him. You're not the industry, Richard. Then she picked up her knife roll from the kitchen, slung her coat over one arm, and walked toward the front door. Every step felt heavier than the last. This restaurant had been her life. She had built menus here. She had trained people here. She had given pieces of herself to a place that in the end asked her to trade her dignity for survival. At the door, she stopped, not to look at Richard. Not to look at Kang, she looked at Ava. Keep your head up, Nia said. Ava wiped her face and tried. Nia pushed the door open and walked out into the late afternoon. The city noise hit her first. Cars, footsteps, distant sirens. Life moving on like nothing had happened. She made it half a block before her knees almost gave out. She stopped near the side of a brick building and pressed one hand against the wall. Only then did she let herself breathe. Only then did the tears come, not loud, not dramatic. Just silent tears that slipped down her face while she stared at the sidewalk and tried to understand how one day could take so much. She had no job now, no plan, no protection. And Kang Ji-hoon had not even begun to show her what his revenge could look like. That night, Nia sat alone in her small apartment with the lights off. Her knife roll lay on the kitchen table. Her phone stayed beside it. She had not eaten. She had not changed out of her black pants and work shoes. The silence of her apartment felt different from the silence of the restaurant. There, silence had been judgment. Here it was loneliness. Her rent was due in 10 days. Her savings could maybe cover 1 month. Maybe. Her mother's framed photo sat on the windowsill, smiling at her from another life, another time. Back when Nia had believed hard work always led somewhere fair, Nia wiped her face with both hands. I didn't apologize, she whispered to the empty room. It sounded like strength. It also sounded like fear. Her phone buzzed. Nia stared at it for a moment before picking it up. Unknown number. The message was short. You chose pride over your job. Tomorrow you'll learn what else Kang Ji-hoon can take from you. Nia read it once, then again. Her hands went cold. She looked around her quiet apartment, at the knife roll on the table, at the dark window, at the life she had worked so hard to keep standing. For the first time all day, Nia Carter felt truly afraid. But even with fear sitting heavy in her chest, she did not regret what she had done. Not yet. Not even now. Nia Carter woke up before sunrise with her phone still in her hand. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. Then the message came back to her. You chose pride over your job. Tomorrow you'll learn what else Kang Ji-hoon can take from you. She sat up slowly in the dark. Her apartment was quiet. Too quiet. the kind of quiet that made every thought sound louder than it should. Her knife roll was still on the kitchen table. Her chef coat was gone, left behind on Richard's desk like a piece of her life she had walked away from and could never put back on. Nia rubbed her hands over her face. She had not slept more than an hour. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ava standing in the middle of the restaurant with water on her face. She heard Kang Ji-hoon's cold voice. She heard Richard telling her that everyone would lose their jobs because of her. She heard the older customer whispering that Kang was not just rich, not just dangerous, but the most feared Korean don in Chicago. Nia had spent her whole life fighting to be taken seriously. Now one man had taken her job in a single day. She stood and walked to the kitchen. The floor was cold under her bare feet. She made coffee, but when she lifted the mug, her hand shook slightly. She hated that. She hated feeling afraid. Not because fear was weak. She knew better than that. Fear was human. Fear kept people alive, but this kind of fear was different. This was the fear of being watched by someone with enough power to turn ordinary things into weapons. A phone call, a job reference, a supplier, a lease, a future. Her phone buzzed on the table. Nia froze unroll number. For a few seconds, she only stared at it. Then she picked it up. Miss Carter, a car is waiting outside your building. Mr. Kang expects you at 8. Nia looked at the clock. 7, 10, 12. Her throat tightened. She walked to the window and pulled the curtain back, just enough to see the street below. A black car was parked across from her apartment building. It had not been there last night. The windows were tinted. The engine was running. A man in a dark suit stood beside the back door with both hands folded in front of him. Nia let the curtain fall. Her heartbeat was steady but hard. She typed back, "I don't work for Mr. Kang." The reply came almost instantly. Not yet. Nia stared at those two words. Not yet. A cold anger moved through her, stronger than the fear. She set the phone down and went to get dressed. She did not put on makeup. She did not dress to impress him. She put on black pants, a dark sweater, and her old boots. She tied her curls back tightly and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her eyes were tired, but they were not broken. When she stepped outside, the morning air was sharp against her skin. The man by the car straightened. "Emmons Carter," he said. His voice was polite. Too polite. Nia looked at him. "I can take a cab. He asked me to bring you." "I didn't ask him for anything." The man opened the back door. "Mr. Kang does not enjoy being kept waiting." Nia let out a small, humorless laugh. Then he should learn patience. The man did not smile. Nia looked at the car, then at the street. She could walk away. She could go back inside. She could block the number and pretend this was not happening. But Kang Ji-hoon had already shown her what he could touch from a distance: suppliers, jobs, fear. If she refused to go, he would not disappear. He would reach for something else. Ava Mateo Rosa. The people still at Marlowe. Nia got into the car. The inside smelled like leather and expensive cologne. The door closed with a soft, heavy sound that made her feel trapped even before the car moved. The driver did not speak. Nia watched Chicago pass outside the tinted glass. Morning workers carried coffee. A woman pushed a stroller. A man jogged with headphones on. The city looked normal, careless, alive. It was strange how the world could keep moving when your own life felt like it had been grabbed by the throat. 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a black glass tower near the river. Nia looked up at it through the window. It was the kind of building that did not seem built for people. It looked like money had become architecture. Smooth, cold, untouchable. The driver opened the door. "This way." Inside, the lobby was silent. Marble floors, tall walls. No front desk chatter. No ordinary office noise. Men in dark suits stood in places that looked casual until you noticed they were watching every exit. Nia followed the driver into a private elevator. The elevator rose without stopping. When the doors opened, she stepped into an office so large it made the city look small. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed Chicago spread beneath a pale morning sky. The river cut through the buildings like a strip of steel. Everything in the room was controlled, polished, and cold. Kang Ji-hoon stood near the window with his back to her. He did not turn when she entered. The driver left without a word. The elevator doors closed. Nia and Kang were alone. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then Kang spoke. "You came." Nia crossed her arms. "You sent a car. I sent an invitation. You sent a threat with leather seats." That made him turn. He wore a black suit again, no tie this time, the top button of his shirt open enough to show more of the tattoo on his neck. Dark ink curved against his skin, sharp and deliberate. It made him look less like a businessman and more like the thing everyone whispered about after he left the room. His eyes moved over her face. "You did not sleep," he said. "I didn't realize you cared." "I don't." "Good. Then we agree on something." Kang walked slowly toward his desk. He did not sit. He leaned one hand against the edge of it and watched her with the same unreadable expression from the restaurant. "Do you know why you are here? Because your pride is injured." His eyes narrowed slightly. My reputation was challenged in public. You threw water in a young woman's face in public. She was careless. She was human. Kang was quiet for a second. Nia noticed that every time she said something simple and true, he paused. Not long, not enough to look weak, but enough to show that the words went somewhere. Then his face closed again. You cost me respect. No, Nia said. I cost you fear. There's a difference. Kang's jaw tightened. He picked up a folder from his desk and tossed it lightly onto the surface between them. Nia did not move toward it. What is that? Your future, he said. My future doesn't belong in a folder on your desk. It does today. Nia stared at him. Kang opened the folder and turned it toward her. There were papers inside, printed emails, cancelled contracts, screenshots of messages. Nia saw the name of the meat supplier, the seafood company, the produce distributor. Then her stomach sank when she saw something else. A restaurant group in Atlanta, one in New York, one in Los Angeles, places she had applied to months ago quietly, just in case she ever needed to leave Marlowe. Places that had never responded. Kang tapped one page with 2 fingers. They all know your name now. Nia forced herself to breathe slowly. What did you tell them? I did not have to tell them much. People listen when I ask questions. You mean people obey when you threaten them? His eyes lifted. Choose your words carefully. No, you choose your actions carefully. I'm just naming them. A faint flicker crossed his face. Irritation. Maybe something deeper. Nia stepped closer to the desk and looked down at the papers. You're trying to make sure no restaurant hires me. I am showing you how small the world becomes when you disrespect the wrong man. Nia looked up. And does that make you feel powerful? Kang's expression went still. It makes me honest. No, Nia said. It makes you cruel. The word hung between them. Cruel, most people probably never said it to his face. Nia could tell by the way his eyes changed. Kang walked around the desk slowly. You think you understand cruelty because a waitress cried in front of you. Nia felt her anger flare. I understand cruelty when I see someone with power use it against someone who can't fight back. Kang stepped closer. She could have fought back. No, she couldn't. She needed that job. So did you. The words struck harder than she wanted to show. Kang noticed. Of course he noticed. He studied people the way chefs studied heat. He knew exactly when something began to burn. You walked away from your job, he said, for a girl you barely know. Nia's voice dropped. I walked away from a job that asked me to kneel. Kang was silent. Outside the windows, Chicago moved below them, tiny and distant. Then he said, pride. Nia shook her head. You keep calling it pride because that makes it easier for you to hate it. What should I call it? Principle. His mouth curved slightly. Principles are expensive, so is shame. For a moment, they only looked at each other. There was tension between them, sharp and alive. It was not soft. It was not romantic. It was closer to a fight. Neither of them had finished. Kang watched her like he wanted to break her down into pieces he could understand. Nia watched him like she refused to become one of those pieces. His phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it, then back at her. Marlowe is struggling this morning, he said. Nia felt her chest tighten. What did you do now? Their second produce order was cancelled. The lunch reservations are dropping. Richard has called 3 people asking for emergency help. Nia hated the way worry hit her. Not for Richard, for the staff, for Ava. You said you wanted to protect your employees, Kang said. How well can you protect them from outside the restaurant? Nia's hands curled into fists. Leave them alone. Why? Because they did nothing to you. Neither did my men when you embarrassed me. Nia stared at him in disbelief. Are you comparing your reputation to people's rent? Kang's face hardened. You think respect is less important because you do not have enough power to need it? Nia stepped closer. No. I think respect that depends on fear is not respect. It's obedience. The room went quiet again. This time Kang looked away first. Only for a second, but he did. Nia saw it. He turned toward the window, jaw tight, one hand sliding into his pocket. For the first time since she had entered, he looked less like a man performing control and more like someone trying to hold something down. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. You speak as if the world rewards goodness. No, Nia said. I speak as if goodness still matters when the world doesn't reward it. His shoulders stilled. Something passed through the silence then, something neither of them touched, a memory maybe. Not hers, his, but before she could read it, he turned back, cold again. I have an offer. Nia almost laughed. You destroy my job prospects and call it an offer. I can restore them. I don't want favors from you. You want Ava safe. That stopped her. Kang saw it. He stepped back to his desk and picked up another folder. Marlowe's suppliers will return. Richard will keep the staff. Ava Brooks will not be fired, punished, or blacklisted. Nia stared at him. What do you want? Kang handed her the folder. This time she took it. Inside was a contract. Her name was at the top. Nia Carter, Executive Chef, Han Private Hospitality Group. The salary number made her breath catch despite herself. It was more money than she had ever made in her life. Enough to pay her rent. Enough to send money to her aunt in Detroit. Enough to breathe for the first time in years. And that was how she knew it was dangerous. She looked up slowly. You want me to work for you? Yes. No, you didn't read it. I don't need to. Kang's gaze sharpened. You would rather lose everything. I would rather not belong to the man who tried to ruin me. You would not belong to me. Nia held up the contract. This says otherwise. His eyes flashed, but he did not deny it. She looked back down at the pages. The job was for a private dining program connected to Kang's hotels, clubs, and events. The contract lasted 6 months. She would design menus, lead a staff, and oversee high-profile dinners. Then she saw the clause near the bottom. Her eyes stopped moving. She read it once, then again. No, she said. Kang watched her. Nia's voice turned cold. No, absolutely not. It is a standard security requirement. It says I have to live at your private estate for the duration of the contract, for your safety. Nia gave him a look full of disbelief. My safety? From who? You. From people who may misunderstand your connection to me. I don't have a connection to you. You do now. Nia shut the folder hard. You are insane. Kang's face did not change. No, I am practical. You want to take away my job, corner me, offer me a way out, then put me inside your house and call it employment? Estate, he corrected. Nia stared at him. For 1 second, he almost looked amused. That made her even angrier. I'm not one of your employees you can move around like furniture. No, he said. You are far more difficult. Good. Remember that when I walk out. She turned toward the elevator. Kang's voice stopped her. If you leave, Marlowe closes by the weekend. Nia froze, her back stayed to him. And Ava, Kang continued. Richard will need someone to blame. A young waitress who brought the late order. A girl who caused a scene. She will be the easiest sacrifice. Nia closed her eyes. She hated him. In that moment, she hated how calmly he found the wound and pressed it. She turned around. You would do that to her. I would not have to. People like Richard always find someone below them to punish. Nia knew he was right. That was the worst part. Richard would not blame himself. He would not blame Kang. He would blame Ava for being the match that lit the fire. He might not fire her immediately, but he would cut her hours, make her life miserable, push her until she quit. Nia's anger trembled in her throat. You're using her against me? Yes. The honesty was brutal. Nia looked at him, disgusted. At least you admit it. I do not waste time pretending. No, you just waste time destroying people until they do what you want. Kang's eyes darkened. And what do you do, Chef Carter? You stand on principle, then leave everyone else to deal with the consequences. The words hit. Nia hated that they hit. She thought of Ava's face. Mateo's quiet loyalty. Rosa saying they needed her. The staff standing in stunned silence while she walked out. Had she protected them, or had she made them targets? Nia looked down at the contract again. Her whole body resisted it. Working for Kang Ji-hoon felt like stepping into a cage because the cage had a lock made of money and responsibility. But refusing him meant other people might pay. She lifted her eyes. I have conditions. Kang's face remained unreadable, but she saw the interest in his eyes. You think you can negotiate with me? No, Nia said. I'm teaching you how to respect a woman who isn't afraid of you. The silence that followed was sharp. Kang did not move, Nia continued. If I work for you, you leave Marlowe alone. Suppliers return. Reservations stay untouched. Richard doesn't punish Ava. Ava keeps her job and her hours. The staff stays safe. Kang stared at her. And in return, you get 6 months of my work, my food, my discipline. Nothing else. His eyes lowered to her mouth for half a second, then returned to her eyes. It was quick. Too quick, but she saw it, so did he. Something unspoken moved between them, and both of them rejected it at the same time. Kang turned away first. You overestimate your value. No, Nia said. You're the one who sent a car. That made his jaw tighten. For the first time, Nia felt like she had touched something real beneath the suit, and the money and the cold control. He walked to the desk and pressed a button on the phone. A man answered immediately. Yes. Boss, prepare the revised contract, Kang said. Nia's stomach tightened. He looked at her as he spoke. Marlowe remains untouched. Ava Brooks keeps her position and hours. No action against the staff. There was a pause on the line. Then the man said, Understood. Kang ended the call. Nia should have felt relief. She did not, because his eyes were still on her. And the estate clause? She asked. It stays. No, it stays, he repeated. I said, I'm not living in your house, and I said it is for security. I don't trust your security. You don't trust me. No, she said. I don't. Kang nodded once, as if that answer pleased him more than a lie would have. Good, good. Trust makes people careless. Nia shook her head. You say things like that and wonder why people fear you. I do not wonder. The office door opened behind her. A tall man in a dark suit entered with a fresh contract. He placed it on the desk and left without speaking. Kang picked up a pen and set it on top of the papers. Nia looked at the contract, then at him. Her heart was beating hard again. She had walked into this tower with nothing but anger. Now she stood in front of a decision that could save Ava, save the staff, and cost Nia her freedom for 6 months. She thought of her mother's voice. Don't lower your head. Nia slowly picked up the pen. Kang watched her hand. She did not sign. Instead, she looked him in the eye. If I sign this, it does not mean you own me. Kang's voice was quiet, I know. That answer surprised her. He stepped closer, just enough that the air between them changed. Then he said, if I owned you, Chef Carter, this would be boring. Nia's fingers tightened around the pen. She hated the way her pulse reacted to that. She hated the calm in his voice. She hated the danger in the room. Most of all, she hated that somewhere beneath all that darkness she could feel his attention on her like heat. Not softness, not love, not yet. Something more dangerous, curiosity, respect, a challenge. She looked back down at the contract. Her name waited on the last page. Nia Carter. She signed. The sound of the pen moving over paper felt louder than it should have. When she finished, Kang took the contract and signed beneath her name. Then he closed the folder. It begins tonight, he said. Nia's head snapped up. Tonight? Yes, no, I need to pack. I need time. You have 3 hours. 3 hours. His eyes stayed calm. The estate is outside the city. My driver will take you home, then bring you there. Nia stepped back. This is not normal. No, Kang said, it is not. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, a message from Ava. Chef, Marlowe just got all deliveries back. Richard is acting weird. Are you okay? Nia stared at the screen. The deal had already started working, and that scared her more than anything, because it proved Kang could ruin things quickly and fix them just as quickly, which meant everything around her now depended on his will. Kang walked past her toward the window. You should answer her, he said. Nia looked at him. What should I say? He did not turn around. Tell her she is safe. Nia swallowed. And am I? For a few seconds, Kang said nothing. Then he looked back at her over his shoulder. His face was unreadable. His voice was low. That depends on how well you survive my world. Nia's hand tightened around her phone. Outside, the city shone in the morning light. Inside, the contract sat on Kang Ji-hoon's desk, like a door closing behind her, and for the first time, Nia understood that she had not escaped his revenge. She had just agreed to walk straight into the center of it. The estate did not feel like a home. That was the first thing Nia Carter understood when Kang Ji-hoon's car passed through the iron gates and rolled up the long private driveway. The place was beautiful but not warm, tall black gates, security cameras hidden between trimmed trees, guards standing beneath soft lights with hands folded in front of them. A wide stone mansion sitting at the end of the drive like it had been carved out of silence. Every window glowed, but none of them looked inviting. Nia sat in the back seat with her hands folded in her lap and watched the estate come closer. This was not a job. Not really. This was Kang Ji-hoon showing her what it meant to step inside his world. The driver opened the door for her, and cold evening air touched her face. Somewhere beyond the estate walls, Chicago still existed with traffic, noise, and ordinary problems. Inside these gates, everything felt controlled, too controlled. A woman in a black uniform greeted her at the entrance and led her through marble halls toward the back of the estate. Nia passed silent staff, dark paintings, polished floors, and men in suits who did not look like they worked in hospitality. They looked like they knew where bodies were buried. Nia kept her face calm. She had agreed to work here to protect Ava and the staff at Marlowe. She reminded herself of that with every step. She was not here because Kang owned her. She was not here because she was afraid. She was here because sometimes protecting people meant walking into the lion's house with your head up. The kitchen was massive. Professional ranges lined one wall. Copper pans hung above a central island. The refrigerators were stocked with ingredients that would make any chef stop and stare. Wagyu beef, fresh oysters, Korean pears, live herbs, black truffles, imported sea salt. Everything perfect. Everything expensive. Nia almost hated how beautiful it was. A young kitchen assistant bowed nervously when she entered. Chef Carter, he said. The menu notes are ready. Nia took the folder from him. How many guests? 22. What kind of dinner? The assistant hesitated. Nia looked up from the folder. What kind of dinner? She asked again. His voice dropped. Private gathering. That told her nothing and everything. She opened the folder. Names were listed beside seating positions. Some Korean, some Japanese, some Italian, some American. Beside each name was a note about dietary restrictions, favorite drinks, security level, and whether they were permitted to sit near Kang. Nia stopped reading. Permitted to sit near Kang. She closed the folder slowly. So this is not a dinner party, she said. The assistant lowered his eyes. No, chef. Nia looked toward the dining room beyond the kitchen doors. From where she stood, she could hear low voices, the clink of glass, soft jazz playing somewhere in the main hall, a Mafia dinner. That was what this was. Kang Ji-hoon had brought her into his estate on the night different crime families were sitting at his table. Nia felt anger rise in her chest. Of course he had. He wanted to test her, or scare her, maybe both. She tied her apron around her waist and rolled up her sleeves. "Fine," she said. "Let's feed the wolves." For the next 2 hours, Nia worked like she always worked. Precise, focused, untouchable. She did not let the estate intimidate her. She did not let the guards at the kitchen entrance distract her. She did not let the thought of Kang sitting in the dining room with killers and kings make her hands shake. Food had rules, heat had rules, salt had rules. A perfect dish did not care whether the person eating it was a mayor, a billionaire, or a criminal with blood on his hands. By 9 o'clock, the first course went out, then the second, then the third. Every plate returned clean. The kitchen staff began to relax, but Nia did not. She knew the night was not over. People like Kang did not invite you into danger just to watch you succeed quietly. After dessert was served, the woman in the black uniform entered the kitchen. "Chef Carter," she said, "Mr. Kang requests you in the dining room." Nia removed her apron. The assistant whispered, "Chef, you don't have to." Nia looked at him. He stopped. She walked out alone. The dining room was long and dark, lit by candles and low golden chandeliers. 22 men and women sat around a table that looked older than the building itself. Their suits were perfect, their jewelry was quiet, their smiles were careful. No one in that room looked harmless. Kang sat at the head of the table. He looked different here, not because of his clothes, though the black suit and open collar made him look colder than ever. He looked different because everyone else in the room adjusted around him. When he lifted his glass, conversations slowed. When he turned his head, people watched. When he said nothing, the silence still belonged to him. This was not the rude customer from Marlow. This was the Don. Kang's eyes found Nia as she entered. "Chef Carter," he said. "The dinner was excellent." Nia kept her face professional. "Thank you." A few guests looked her over with curiosity. Some seemed amused that Kang had called the chef into the room. Others looked at her like she was part of the entertainment. Nia knew that look. She had seen it before. People who had never worked with their hands often had a way of looking at the people who fed them as if labor were invisible once the plate was full. A man seated halfway down the table leaned back in his chair. He was broad, older, with silver at his temples and a gold ring on nearly every finger. His name card read Dae-Yun Lee. He smiled at Nia, but there was nothing kind in it. "So this is her," he said. The room quieted slightly. Kang did not move. Nia looked at Lee. Lee lifted his wine glass. "The chef who threw Kang Ji-hoon out of a restaurant." A few men chuckled. Nia said nothing. Lee's smile grew. "I expected someone taller." More laughter. Nia's expression did not change. She had learned long ago that men like this wanted a reaction. Anger made them feel powerful. Tears made them feel entertained. Silence made them uncomfortable. So she gave him silence. Lee tapped one finger against his glass. "Tell me, Chef Carter," he said, "do you always forget your place, or was Kang unlucky that day?" The laughter faded. The insults sat openly now. Nia felt it, not because she believed him, because every woman knew the weight of being told there was a place she belonged and it was always beneath someone else. She answered calmly, "My place tonight was in the kitchen." The empty plates suggest I remembered it very well. A few people smiled despite themselves. Lee's eyes sharpened. Kang still had not spoken. That bothered Nia more than she wanted to admit. Lee leaned forward. Sharp tongue for hired help. The room went still. That was the line. Everyone felt it. Nia stood alone at the edge of the table, hands relaxed at her sides. Her face stayed composed, but something inside her tightened. Before she could answer, Kang set his glass down. It was a soft sound, but the entire room heard it. Lee's smile froze. Kang looked at him. "Apologize." One word. No shouting, no anger, just command. Lee blinked. "What?" Kang's eyes did not move from him. "You insulted Chef Carter in my house. Apologize." The temperature of the room seemed to drop. No one laughed now. Nia looked at Kang, surprised despite herself. Lee's face darkened. "Kang, surely you're not serious." Kang leaned back in his chair. "I am always serious in my own home." Lee gave a short laugh, but it sounded forced. "She is staff. She is under my roof. She embarrassed you in public. And you are embarrassing yourself in private." A dangerous silence followed. Lee's hand tightened around his wine glass. "Kang," he said, voice low, "be careful how far you push this." The men sitting near Lee shifted uneasily. Kang's expression did not change. "You are sitting at my table, drinking my wine after eating food prepared by the woman you just insulted." His voice stayed calm. "You will apologize or you will leave before the next breath reaches your lungs." The room froze. Naya's heart hit hard once against her ribs. No one moved. Lee stared at Kang. For a moment, Naya thought the man would refuse. Then Lee slowly turned his head toward her. His jaw was tight. His eyes were full of hatred. "I apologize," he said. Naya held his stare. "For what?" Kang asked. Lee's face flushed. Naya looked back at Kang, shocked by the cold precision of it. Kang did not look away from Lee. Lee swallowed his pride like poison. "I apologize," he said again, each word stiff, "for insulting you, Chef Carter." Nia nodded once. "I accept." Lee pushed his chair back so hard it scraped across the floor. "This dinner has lost its flavor," he said. Kang's gaze followed him. "Then leave hungry." Lee's men stood with him. The room remained silent as he walked toward the door. Before leaving, Lee turned once. His eyes did not go to Kang. They went to Nia. The look he gave her was not embarrassment. It was promise. Then he left. Only after the door closed did the room begin breathing again. Kang lifted his glass as if nothing had happened. "Continue," he said. Conversations returned slowly, but they were different now, quieter, more careful. Nia stood there for one more second, trying to understand what she had just witnessed. Kang Ji-hoon had defended her, not gently, not warmly, not like a good man in a romantic story. He had defended her like a king punishing disrespect in his court. That should not have touched her, but it did, and that made her angry with herself. When the dinner finally ended, Naya returned to the kitchen. She worked through cleanup in silence, giving instructions, checking inventory, signing off on storage. The staff was careful around her now. They had all heard what happened in the dining room. By midnight, the estate had gone quiet. Nia stepped out through a side hallway, hoping to return to the guest room she had been assigned without seeing Kang again. She did not get far. He was waiting near the glass doors that opened toward the garden. Moonlight touched the side of his face. For a second, he looked less like a don and more like a man carved out of loneliness. Nia stopped. "Kang, Chef Carter." She crossed her arms. "Why did you do that?" He looked at her. "Be specific. You know what I mean." He turned slightly toward the garden where dark trees moved in the wind. Lee was disrespectful. Nia waited. Kang said nothing else. "That's it?" she asked. "He insulted you in my house. And I did not like it." The answer was simple. Too simple. Naya took one step closer. "You didn't like watching someone insult me." His jaw tightened. "No, but you had no problem insulting Ava." Kang's eyes shifted back to her. The air changed. Naya knew she had hit the place he kept guarded. She kept going anyway. Ava was a girl just trying to do her job. She stood in front of you with her head down, apologizing over and over. You threw water in her face. You humiliated her in front of strangers. And tonight, when Lee tried to humiliate me, you made him apologize. Kang's face closed. "Do not compare those situations." "Why not?" "Because they are not the same." "They are exactly the same." His eyes hardened. "No." Nia stepped closer again. "Yes. The only difference is tonight you cared about the person being insulted." Silence. Kang looked away. For the first time, he looked away. It was small, but Nia saw it. Her anger softened around the edges. Not gone. Never gone. But something in her chest shifted. She had expected him to deny everything with arrogance. She had expected cruelty. Maybe mockery, maybe a threat. Instead, he stood there in silence, jaw tight, eyes turned toward the dark garden like her words had found a wound he did not want touched. Naya's voice lowered. "If you can force a Mafia boss to apologize to me, then you can apologize to Ava." Kang said nothing. Kang. His name came out softer than she meant it to. He turned back to her. There was something in his eyes now that had not been there at Marlowe. Not warmth, not apology, shame. High, under control. Buried under pride, locked behind years of being feared, but it was there. Nia saw it clearly. He was sorry. He just did not know how to say it without feeling like it would make him weak. Kang's voice was quiet when he finally spoke. "You think one apology fixes what I did?" "No," Nia said, "but it starts with admitting you did it." His expression tightened. She lowered her eyes. He said. Nia went still. Kang looked toward the garden again. When I poured the water, she lowered her eyes. He swallowed once, barely visible. "My mother used to do that." Nia did not speak. Kang's voice stayed low. Men with money spoke to her like she was less than human. She would lower her eyes because she needed the job. I hated her for it when I was young. I thought she was weak. His mouth tightened. Then I became a man other people lowered their eyes for. The confession was not gentle. It sounded like something dragged out of him against his will. Naya felt the softness inside her grow, unwanted and undeniable. "Kang," she said quietly, "you didn't become powerful to stop men like that. You became one of them." His face changed. Pain flashed before anger covered it. "Careful." "No," she said. "You need to hear it." His eyes locked on hers. Anyone else would have stepped back. Naya did not. "You were ashamed tonight because you saw it. You saw Ava. You saw your mother. And for 1 second you knew exactly what you had done." Kang breathed out slowly. The silence between them felt dangerous, but not because of violence, because of truth. Finally, he said, "Go to your room, Nia." She noticed he did not call her Chef Carter. Not this time. She held his gaze. "Say her name." His face hardened again. "What?" He stared at her for a long moment. Then, very quietly, he said, "Ava." Nia nodded. "That is where you start." She turned and walked away before he could answer. Her heart was heavy and confused. She still did not trust him. She still had not forgiven him. But she had seen something human under all that ice. And that was worse, because hating a monster was easy. Understanding a broken man was dangerous. Kang remained by the garden doors after she left. For a long time, he did not move. Then one of his men approached from the shadows. "Boss." Kang did not turn. "What?" The man held out a black envelope. It was left at the east gate. Kang took it. There was no name on the front. Only a red mark pressed into the paper like a stamp. Lee's mark. Kang opened it. Inside was a photograph. Nia, standing in the dining room earlier that night, wearing her white chef coat, looking calm while Lee apologized to her. Behind the photograph was a note. "You made me bow to her." Kang's eyes went colder with every word. "You chose a chef over respect. Now I will make the whole city watch her fall." At the bottom, written in thick black ink, was one final line. "War begins now." Kang stood perfectly still. The man beside him shifted uneasily. "Boss." Kang folded the note once, then again. His face showed nothing, but the air around him changed. The soft loneliness Nia had seen minutes earlier vanished. In its place stood the Don everyone feared. Kang looked toward the hallway where Nia had disappeared. For the first time, the threat was no longer about pride. It was about her. And whoever had decided to use Nia Carter against him had just made the worst mistake of their life. Nia Carter did not sleep that night. She sat on the edge of the bed in Kang Ji-hoon's estate, still wearing the clothes from dinner, with her hands folded so tightly in her lap that her fingers hurt. The room was beautiful. Too beautiful. A wide bed with white sheets. A glass wall facing the dark garden. Soft lights. Fresh flowers on the table. A private bathroom bigger than her whole kitchen back home. But none of it felt safe. Not after the black envelope. Not after the look on Kang's face when he read Lee's threat. "War begins now." Those words kept moving through Nia's mind like a blade. She had known Kang's world was dangerous. She had felt it from the moment his car stopped outside her apartment. She had seen it in the way people lowered their voices around him, in the way men with money and power moved carefully when he entered a room. But tonight, she understood something worse. Kang Ji-hoon had taken a fight for her, a real fight, not a restaurant argument, not a business threat, not wounded pride, a war because Dae-hyun Lee had insulted her and Kang had forced him to apologize because Kang had chosen her dignity over another mafia boss's ego. Nia pressed one hand to her chest. She hated how much that meant to her. She hated that the same man who once humiliated Ava had now protected Nia in front of a room full of monsters. She hated that her heart was no longer simple. Before Kang, she knew who he was: cruel, arrogant, dangerous, easy to hate. But now she had seen shame in his eyes. She had heard him say Ava's name like it hurt. She had listened when he spoke about his mother, lowering her eyes in front of powerful men. And now, because of her, one of those powerful men had declared war. Nia stood and walked to the window. Below, guards moved across the garden paths. More men had arrived after midnight. Cars lined the far side of the estate. The soft, controlled silence of the mansion had changed into something tense and watchful. Kang was preparing for war for her. Nia closed her eyes. "What have I done?" she whispered. The door opened behind her. She turned quickly. Kang stood in the doorway. He had removed his suit jacket. His black shirt sleeves were rolled to his forearms. His face was calm, but his eyes looked sharper than before, as if he had not rested for even a second. "You should be sleeping," he said. Nia laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You received a death threat because of me. I have received worse. That's not comforting." "I was not trying to comfort you." She looked at him. "Kang." He went still at the way she said his name. No anger this time, no challenge, just fear, real fear. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "You are safe here." "Am I?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." Nia looked back through the window at the guards. "Then why does safe look like a prison preparing for battle?" Kang walked closer, stopping a few feet away from her. "Because men like Lee do not understand mercy. They only understand strength." "And you?" His eyes met hers. "What do I understand?" Nia's voice softened. "You took this fight because of me." Kang said nothing. "That man threatened you because you defended me. Because you made him apologize. He insulted you in my house, and you could have ignored it." "No." The answer came too quickly, too honest. Nia's throat tightened. "Why?" Kang looked away. That small motion was enough. Nia took a step closer. Why, Kang? He breathed in slowly. When he looked back at her, the Don was still there, but so was the broken man she had glimpsed in the garden. Because when he spoke to you like that, I saw what I had done to Ava. Nia stopped breathing for a moment. Kang's voice stayed low. I saw her face again. The water, her lowered eyes, your anger. His jaw flexed. And I hated that Lee's words sounded familiar. Nia's eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. You were wrong, she whispered. I know. The words were quiet, but they were there. Not pride, not excuse, not power. Admission. Nia looked at him with a heart that felt too full and too wounded at the same time. You need to tell her that. Kang nodded once. I will. Nia did not expect it to be that easy. Maybe that was why a tear finally slipped down her cheek. Kang saw it. His expression changed immediately. He took one step toward her, then stopped himself, as if he was afraid touching her would be another kind of power she had not given him. Nia. She wiped the tear quickly. I don't know what to do with you, she said. His voice was almost rough. Then don't do anything. That's not how feelings work. Kang was silent. Nia looked up at him. I hated you. I know. I still should. I know. But when Lee threatened you because of me, I felt afraid for you. She shook her head, almost angry at herself. And when you said you knew what you did to Ava was wrong, I felt something soften inside me, even though I didn't want it to. Kang's eyes did not leave her face. Nia's voice trembled. I don't want to love a man who only protects me because he thinks I belong to him. Something flashed in his eyes. You do not belong to me. Then why do you protect me? For the first time, Kang had no quick answer, no cold line, no command, only silence. Then he said, because I cannot stand the thought of losing you. Nia's heart broke open quietly. She turned away before he could see too much on her face. Outside, the garden lights flickered once. Then again, Kang's body changed before Nia could even ask. He moved toward the window. The lights went out. The entire estate fell into darkness. For 1 second, there was silence. Then gunfire broke the morning. Nia gasped as the glass wall cracked. Kang grabbed her and pulled her down before the window shattered. Glass exploded across the room. Nia hit the floor with Kang's body over hers, his arm around her head, shielding her from the falling pieces. Stay down, he said. His voice was no longer soft. It was the voice of the Don men shouted in the hallway. Alarms screamed. More shots came from outside, then from inside the estate. Nia's heart pounded so hard she could barely hear herself breathe. Kang pulled her up and pushed her behind the wall near the bathroom entrance. Look at me, he ordered. She did. His face was close. Too close. Whatever happens, you stay behind me. No. His eyes flashed. Nia, I am not going to stand there and watch you die for me. You will if I tell you to. Even in terror, she glared at him. You still don't know how to ask. For half a second, something like a smile touched his mouth. Then the door burst open. 2 of Kang's guards entered. Boss, east side is breached. Lee's men. Kang pulled a gun from the guard's holster with frightening ease. Nia stared at it. The reality of his world hit her again. This was not romance. This was not fantasy. This was danger with a heartbeat. Kang looked at one guard. Take her through the west corridor. No, Nia said immediately. Kang turned to her. You are leaving. I'm not leaving you. You are not arguing with me in the middle of an attack. I signed a contract, not my voice away. The guard looked terrified by her timing. Kang stepped closer. Nia, if Lee gets to you, he will not use you to hurt me. He will use you to break me. Her anger vanished. Because behind the command, she heard fear, not for his power, for her. Another shot hit somewhere close. The wall shook. Kang grabbed her hand. Please. The word stunned her. Please, from Kang Ji-hoon. Nia's throat tightened. She nodded. Okay. He placed her hand in the guard's. Keep her alive, Kang said. The guard nodded. With my life. Nia was pulled into the hallway, but before she turned the corner, she looked back. Kang stood in the broken doorway, surrounded by glass and smoke, ready to face the men who had come for her. For one terrible second, Nia thought it might be the last time she saw him. The west corridor was chaos. Staff ran. Guards shouted. Lights flashed red along the walls. Nia's guard pushed her forward, one hand firmly at her back. They almost reached the lower stairwell when 2 men appeared at the end of the hall. The guard shoved Nia behind him. Everything happened too fast. A fight. A gunshot. A scream. Nia fell against the wall, her ears ringing. One attacker dropped. The other lunged toward her. Nia grabbed the nearest thing she could find, a heavy brass vase from a hallway table, and swung it with everything she had. It hit the man's shoulder and sent him stumbling, but not enough. He turned toward her, furious, before he could reach her. Kang came from behind him like a shadow. He struck fast, brutal, controlled. The man fell. Kang turned to Nia. His eyes ran over her face, her arms, her body, checking for blood, for injury, for anything wrong. Are you hurt? Nia shook her head. He cupped her face in both hands before he seemed to realize he was doing it. His hands were warm. His breath was uneven. For the first time, Nia saw true panic on his face, not rage, not control. Panic because he had almost lost her. I'm okay, she whispered. His forehead almost touched hers. Never scare me like that again. She laughed once through tears. You're the one with the Mafia war. His eyes softened for half a second, then a sharp pain crossed his face. Nia looked down. Blood stained the sleeve of his shirt near his shoulder. Her heart stopped. Kang, it's nothing. You're bleeding. It's nothing. She grabbed his arm. Stop saying that. He looked at her hand on him, then at her face. Something passed between them in the middle of the smoke and alarms. Something neither of them could deny anymore. A guard rushed toward them. Boss, Lee's men are retreating. Kang's face turned cold again. Not retreating. Running. His men gathered around him. Nia saw the dawn return, but this time she did not only see the darkness. She saw the man who had said please, the man who had put his body over hers when the glass exploded, the man bleeding because he had come back for her. Kang gave orders quickly. No mercy for Lee's network. No harm to civilians. Protect the restaurant staff. Protect Ava. Lock down the city routes. Cut every business line that fed Lee's men. It was war, but not wild war controlled folks. Final. By afternoon it was over. Dae-yoon Lee's men were gone from the streets. His clubs were shut down. His accounts frozen through people Kang never named. His allies abandoned him before sunset. The same men who had laughed at Nia during dinner now sent messages of loyalty to Kang. Lee had wanted to make the city watch Nia fall. Instead, the city watched him disappear. That evening, the estate was quiet again, but it did not feel the same. Nia stood in a smaller sitting room while a doctor finished bandaging Kang's shoulder. Kang sat without complaint, though his face showed he hated every second of being treated like a patient. Nia crossed her arms. You are very bad at being injured. I am not injured. The doctor glanced at Nia, then wisely said nothing. Nia gave Kang a look. You were shot, grazed, bleeding, temporarily. The doctor finished and left quickly, as if he did not want to be trapped between them. Nia sat across from Kang. For a while, neither spoke. Then Kang said, Lee will never come near you again. Nia looked at him. You almost died. I didn't. But you could have. Yes. The honesty made her angry. You say that like it means nothing. It means everything. She frowned. Kang leaned forward slightly. It means I know exactly what I was risking. Nia's eyes burned. Why would you risk all this for me? His voice lowered. Because you made me want to become someone I thought was already dead. Nia stopped. Kang looked at her with no armor this time. You stood in front of me when everyone else lowered their eyes. You protected Ava when no one else moved. You lost your job rather than apologize for doing the right thing. His jaw tightened. I have been feared for many years, Nia. But you were the first person in a long time who made me ashamed of being feared. A tear slipped down her cheek. Kang looked at it like it hurt him. I do not know how to be gentle, he said. I do not know how to love without turning it into protection. I do not know how to ask without making it sound like an order. A small, broken smile touched Nia's lips. No, you really don't. His mouth curved faintly. Then he reached into his jacket pocket with his uninjured hand. Nia's breath caught when she saw the small black velvet box. Kang, he opened it. A diamond ring sat inside, simple and beautiful, not too large, not too loud. It was nothing like the cold luxury of his estate. It looked chosen, not displayed. Nia Carter, he said quietly. Marry me. The room went silent. Nia stared at the ring. Her heart wanted to run toward him. Her memory held her still. Ava's wet face. The restaurant the first night, the humiliation that had started everything. Nia looked up with tears in her eyes. I can't say yes here. Kang's face changed, but he did not speak. Nia stood slowly. If you want to marry me, then don't ask me in this estate. Don't ask me in a room full of your power. Don't ask me where everything belongs to you. She wiped her cheek. Take me back to where our story started. Kang understood before she said the name. Marlowe. Nia nodded. That is where you first broke something. That is where I first stood against you. That is where Ava was hurt. That is where I lost my job. That is where I hated you. Her voice trembled. And if we are going to start a new life, we start there. Not by pretending the pain never happened, but by healing it. Kang closed the ring box slowly. Nia stepped closer. And before you ask me anything, before you put any ring on my finger, you apologize to Ava. For 1 second, Kang stared at her. Then he laughed, not cruelly, not coldly, a real laugh. Soft, surprised, almost helpless. Nia blinked. What? He shook his head, still smiling slightly. You are the only woman in the world who could turn my marriage proposal into a moral appointment. Nia tried not to smile. I'm serious. I know. His smile faded into something warmer. That is why I love you. The words reached her before she was ready. Love from Kang Ji-hoon. It did not sound easy. It sounded like surrender. Nia's tears fell freely now. Then prove it the right way. Kang stood, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. I will. The next evening, Marlowe restaurant was full. No one there knew at first why the black cars had stopped outside. Richard saw them through the front window and nearly dropped the reservation book. Ava Brooks was setting a table near the center of the room when the door opened. Kang Ji-hoon walked in. The restaurant went silent. Every person who remembered that first day stopped moving. Ava froze. Richard turned pale. Mateo stepped out from the kitchen. Then Naya entered behind Kang. For a moment, everyone only stared. Naya was not wearing a chef coat. She wore a simple black dress, her curls soft around her shoulders, her eyes bright with emotion she was trying to control. Ava's eyes filled immediately. "Chef," Nia smiled. "Hi, Ava." Kang walked toward Ava, slowly. No guards stepped ahead of him. No men spoke for him. No one cleared the room. He came alone as a man carrying the weight of what he had done. Ava stood still, hands trembling at her sides. Kang stopped in front of her. For the first time in that restaurant, he lowered his head. "I owe you an apology, Ava Brooks." Ava's lips parted. The whole room held its breath. Kang continued. "I humiliated you because I was angry. I used my power against you because I could. You did not deserve it. You were doing your job. I was wrong." Ava's eyes filled with tears. Nia pressed a hand to her own chest. Kang's voice stayed steady, but Nia could hear the emotion beneath it. "I am sorry for throwing water in your face. I am sorry for making you feel small. I am sorry for every second you had to stand here believing you had to accept disrespect to keep your job." Ava covered her mouth. A tear slipped down her cheek. Kang looked at her with quiet sincerity. "You never owed me an apology. I owed you one." Ava wiped her face, but more tears came. For a moment, she did not speak. Then she said softly, "Thank you." Kang nodded once. "And if anyone in this restaurant ever punishes you for what happened, they answer to me." Richard swallowed hard near the host stand. Ava gave a small, teary laugh. Nia smiled through her tears. It was not about fear this time, it was about restoration. Ava's dignity had been taken in this room. Now it had been returned in this room. Kang turned toward Richard. "Chef Carter left this restaurant with more honor than anyone who stayed silent that day." Richard lowered his eyes. Naya did not need him humiliated. She did not need revenge. She only needed the truth to be seen. Kang turned back to the room. Then he looked at Naya. Everything around them faded. The tables, the staff, the guests, the old hurt, the fear. He walked to the center of the restaurant, the exact place where Nia had stood when she told him to leave. Nia's breath caught. Kang held out his hand. She walked to him. Ava stood near the side, crying openly now, but smiling. Kang took Nia's hand gently. Then he lowered himself to one knee. Gasps filled the restaurant. Nia pressed her free hand over her mouth. Kang opened the black velvet box. The diamond caught the warm restaurant lights. "Nia Carter," he said, voice deep and steady. "The first time I stood in this room, I thought power meant never being challenged. Then you looked me in the eye and told me to leave." A soft laugh moved through the room. Nia cried and smiled at the same time. Kang's eyes stayed on hers. "I came here arrogant. You stood here brave. I came here cruel. You stood here kind. I came here believing fear was respect. You taught me that respect without kindness is only loneliness wearing a crown." Nia's tears fell harder. Kang's voice softened. "You did not change me by loving me first. You changed me by refusing to let me become worse." The restaurant was silent now. Even Richard looked shaken. Kang held the ring a little higher. "This is where I first lost to you. This is where I first saw the woman who would become my courage. So this is where I want to begin again." Nia could barely breathe. Kang looked up at her. No pride left between them. "Will you marry me?" For a second, Nia saw everything. Ava's tears, the water on the floor, her own chef coat on Richard's desk, the black car outside her apartment, the estate, the attack, Kang shielding her from shattered glass, his quiet voice saying, "I know," his apology, his love. She had not lost herself to reach this moment. She had carried herself here, with dignity, with pain, with truth, and now love was not asking her to bow. It was kneeling in front of her. Nia laughed through her tears. "Yes," she whispered. Kang's face changed. For the first time, Nia saw pure happiness there. Not control, not victory. Happiness. He slid the ring onto her finger. The restaurant erupted. Ava clapped with both hands over her mouth. Mateo shouted from the kitchen doorway. Rosa cried into a napkin. Even strangers stood and applauded, not fully knowing the whole story, but feeling enough of it to understand they had witnessed something rare. Kang stood near, stepped into his arms. For a moment, he held her carefully, like she was not something he owned, not something he controlled, but something he had been trusted with. She whispered near his ear. "You finally learned how to ask," he laughed softly. "And you finally said yes." She pulled back and looked at him. "Only because you said sorry first." His smile was warm now. "I will remember that for the rest of my life." Nia looked around Marlowe. This was where it had started, not with love, with humiliation, with anger, with one woman standing up for another. And maybe that was why the ending mattered so much. Because love that begins after truth has a stronger foundation than love built on lies. Kang took her hand and turned toward Ava. Ava smiled at them through tears. Nia reached out, and Ava came into her arms. The three of them stood there for one small moment, tied together by the pain of what had happened and the healing that had finally followed. Kang looked at Ava. "Dinner is on me tonight," he said. Ava blinked. "For everyone?" "For everyone." Mateo shouted from the kitchen. "Then I'm ordering the expensive wine." For the first time in a long time, laughter filled Marlowe. Real laughter, warm laughter, the kind that stayed in the walls. Later, when the restaurant lights softened and music played low in the background, Nia and Kang sat at the same table where he had once waited with cold impatience. This time he waited for her. She looked at him across the candlelight. "No throwing water tonight?" she asked. Kang's mouth curved. "Never again, and no threatening the staff. No. And no calling a car outside my apartment without asking," he sighed. "I am still learning." Nia laughed. Kang watched her like the sound was something he wanted to memorize. Outside, Chicago moved on. Inside Marlowe, a new story began exactly where the old one had broken. The black chef who refused to bow had not only saved a waitress's dignity, she had taught a feared Don how to kneel for love. And Kang Ji-hoon, the man who once believed power meant being feared, finally understood that the strongest thing he had ever done was not winning a war. It was standing in the restaurant where he had been wrong, lowering his pride, and choosing to become worthy of the woman who had changed his life. Nia looked at the ring on her finger, then at Kang. Her heart was still strong, still hers, and now, finally, safe. Their journey had started with one command. "You're rude, leave my restaurant." But it ended with one promise. "Stay with me." And this time, Nia stayed.